Well, hello, my name is John Rotenstein. I'm a developer advocate at AWS, which means I'm all about helping you become better developers and better using of AWS services. This show is Developers Let's Code, aimed at new to AWS developers. And AWS is hard to learn. There's so many services, there's so many things you have to know. So what we try to do in this weekly show is to show you each service and even parts of each service, just the essential bits you need to know to get going as an AWS developer. If you're watching this, please shout out in chat and say where you're calling from. And this week we are focusing on Lightsail. Let's have a look here. If you haven't before, I should put this in chat. Please feel free to subscribe to our notification service that will tell you when each episode is coming out. So this week we are focusing on creating a website in Amazon Lightsail. The next couple of weeks we'll be looking at AWS Amplify and how to create static and dynamic sites in Amplify. So let's begin. Hey David, good to have you around again. Have you ever used Lightsail, David? So what is Lightsail? This is a service that I personally haven't used a great deal, and that's because I'm normally working with our larger services like EC2, S3, VPC, all these complex, very, very powerful services that emulate what you would normally get in a data center, whereas Lightsail is aimed more at our smaller customers, people who are only going to be launching 1 or 2 instances, who don't want all this complex networking. They might want some databases and things, but it's sort of an introductory step to AWS. So we've got here the fact that it's compute, storage, and networking, so it's enough to get you up and going. The main thing about Lightsail is it's easy to use, it's very, very simple, as you'll see in a moment, and it has a predictable price. We'll spend a bit of time actually looking at price in this episode because Lightsail is specifically the one service that says, here's a fixed price, this is all you pay. If you stay within these limits, you'll be quite okay. Behind the scenes, you get the same sort of power that you would get with EC2, but the way you access it is a bit different. And there is also a programmatic API and a CLI you can use to do it. So let's begin. If I go to Lightsail in the AWS console, you'll notice that the console is actually a little bit different. It's designed to be simpler, less confusing for a lot of people. And you'll see there are sections here, instances, which are our virtual computers, databases, you can spin up a database. Behind the scenes, it's based on Amazon RDS, but here we just call it a Lightsail database. Some very simple networking options. We'll get into some of these around IP addresses. You can also create content distribution networks like CloudFront, a load balancer, and manage your own DNS names, and disk storage and snapshots. So the first thing we should really do is start playing with it. The best way to do that is probably to create an instance. So I click Create Instance, it has the nice friendly interface. Brads, g'day. For those of you who have just joined in, my name is John Rotenstein. I'm a developer advocate at AWS, and today we're looking at Amazon Lightsail, and we'll also play a bit with WordPress. So if you're fairly new to AWS or you don't know much about Lightsail, you're in the right place. So here when I say create an instance, it's a very simple interface. First of all, it says, where do you want to create the instance? And you'll see here we have most regions available around the world, not every region. I'm located in Australia, so I think I will choose the Sydney region. So it's just a matter of choosing that. Again, much simpler than the EC2 console where you have to go to a different region to choose things. Once you've chosen a region, you can then choose the availability zones. So a region is a collection of data centers, and in that collection of data centers, we have physically separate data centers represented by availability zones. I can click on help here, and it shows that information. So we normally say it's a good idea to put your infrastructure in multiple availability zones. So if anything goes wrong with one data center, your services are still up and running. And if I click on different things here, I can go to Canada, for example. And when I click on Canada, it will update the list of availability zones. And we can see that in Canada, I've got, oh, this is interesting, A, B, and D. So my particular account doesn't have a zone C in Canada. Anyway, I'll choose Sydney. I'll go for Zone B just for something different. So it says, where do you want to launch the instance? Next, it says, what do you want to launch? Linux or Windows? I'll start with a bit of Windows. And it says, do you want to launch applications like SQL Server Express? But I'll just go for a straight Windows instance here. And I will choose Windows Server 2019. There aren't too many options I can select here. I could add a launch script. Those of you familiar with user data, this is where I can provide a script that runs when the instance starts up, maybe to install some software. I can select the size of instance, which is closely related to price. We'll talk about price in a moment, so I won't go into the details here, but it gives all of the information within the console. I think it's possibly the only AWS service that actually exposes the prices within the console. We'll come back to that in a moment. I'll give it a name. This is my Windows 2019 server. That's great. I can add tags. Here's another interesting difference from EC2. I can add key-only tags, such as saying this is my finance system. Or I can add key value tags, which you would normally see with EC2. That's where I could say, hey, the department equals HR. So two different ways of tagging your instances. Hit the button and that's done. So very, very simple. Most of those options are just default. Select the type of instance you want and away you go. That Windows instance will take a little bit of time to launch. So in the meantime, let's also launch a database. So traditionally databases are very hard to launch, and Lightsail makes it easy. So for those of you who just joined us, my name is John. We are playing with Lightsail. So again, I can come in and choose where I'd like my database, which region, which availability zone. I'll put it in the same zone. It says, what database do I want? Fewer options than in the Amazon Relational Database Service. Here it's saying I can have MySQL or Postgres. I like Postgres, so I'll give it a try. You can choose your version. I can give it some login credentials, so maybe my master username will be master. I can have it create a password. The database will be called, let's call it DB master, that's fine. Now, the main options here, standard and high availability. A standard database spins up a database server in one availability zone, whereas high availability spins up I've got to stop using the words master and slave these days. The correct terminology now is a primary database in one availability zone and a secondary database in a different availability zone. And what that means is if something goes wrong with my availability zone and the master database, it will automatically switch over to the secondary database so that all my data is there, the database will be up and running within a few minutes. I haven't lost any of my data. And you'll notice that when I choose that high availability option, it's twice the price because it's running two servers for me. Again, we'll delve into pricing a little bit later. And I can give it a name, but I'll just say, yep, go ahead and launch it. So really just a few clicks and I can get a database spun up in my network as well. So while they are spinning up, let's actually take a look at Amazon Lightsail pricing. Because one of the biggest detractors of Lightsail is its simplistic pricing. In fact, here it says it on the pricing page, no nonsense monthly pricing. Focus on your code, not your bill. It bundles all the resources you need in a single, simple price. So let's spend a bit of time looking at this. We have, of course, Windows and Linux. If you choose a Windows instance, the cost of Windows is included in there. So you'll notice here that we have a choice of instances. They have a certain amount of memory, a certain amount of CPU, a certain amount of disk space. This is interesting. Traditionally with EC2, the cost of the instance is separate to the cost of your disk storage. Here we bundle it together so you know exactly what you're paying. Any people watching out there have used Lightsail? Please let me know in chat. I'd be interested to hear your experiences. The other thing that is bundled in the price is data transfer. Now, AWS does not charge for data being transferred into the cloud, but we do charge for data going out to the internet. And that can be a bit of an unpredictable cost for a lot of people because they don't know how much data they're transferring. So when you choose one of these Lightsail instance sizes, you can actually select, based on the size of the instance, the power of the machine, the amount of disk storage, and the amount of data transfer, which makes it really, really good. If you do go over those data transfer amounts, then standard prices do apply. But as a whole, it's a lot lower cost. For example, I priced up, I think it was this instance here. This approximately matches to a T2 or T3 micro instance, which would end up costing you about $8.50 a month. So it's only $5. Plus, it gives you the disk storage, which would normally be 10 cents a gig, so that'd be another $4 of storage. And the data transfer, which is almost more valuable than the instance itself. So really great how all of these things are bundled together. One thing to note, if you launch a Lightsail instance and you then want to change the plan you're on, unlike EC2, you can't just switch that. You can't just stop the instance, change and turn it on again. You actually have to export your disk image as a snapshot, launch a new one, and bring that snapshot in again. So not so easy to switch between the plans. The plans are priced monthly, but they are charged per hour. So if you only use an instance for one day, you're not charged for the whole month. A little note here that some pricing around the world is more expensive, some internet pricing. So if you are in Mumbai or Sydney, my Sydney, you only get about half the amount of data transfer compared to the rest, because those countries have more expensive internet transfer. Terribly sorry. Same thing for databases. You can come in and you can choose a database for a certain price, double for high availability, and again, it includes compute power, disk storage, and you get some additional data transfer. This is very handy if you're just making a public database, which you want to access across the internet. It does include a certain amount of data transfer added to your account when you use a database. Other things we'll talk about later, you can add a content distribution network, CloudFront, effectively on your services. And we've even given you a first year free for that content delivery network with 50 gigs of data transfer. If you go over that, standard prices apply. You can also add load balancers, again at a fixed price. In EC2, a load balancer is charged per hour plus for the amount of data it goes. Here, it's one fixed price, just $18 a month, one simple price per month. And disk storage is charged at the normal 10 cents per gig per month. But to make it simpler, we simply say, hey, do you want a 32 gig, which is $3.20, or do you want a 64, rather than you dialing it in and not being too sure. And you pay for disk snapshots as well. So pricing, very, very simple. So let's see, my Windows server should be up in here, and I would like to connect my Windows server. And here we see another interesting capability of Lightsail. That is, it lets me directly connect to that service. Let me just change one thing. I just want to turn off an extension that is interfering with me. Whee! And it's not letting me do that. Okay, that will be interesting if I can't get rid of that one. We'll come back to that. So I will connect into this RDP instance. Brad's is asking, I said the data transfer is added to your account. Does that mean you have a pool of data transfer in your account and you can use that however you like? If you have two instances with 2 terabytes, can you use one with 3 terabytes, one with 1 terabyte? I don't know definitely. There is, however, a really, really good FAQ which has been provided for Lightsail, which I should bring onto the screen here. Oh, by the way, my Windows instance has just opened up here in a browser window, which is really, really interesting, being able to open up Windows in a browser window. We'll get back to that shortly. So just to answer Brad's question, let's see if there's any deep detail. Traditionally, we don't tie data transfer to a particular resource. So I said that it gets added to your account because we can't really track down, well, we can track it down, but in your bill, it is not described which resource did it. So all traffic that simply goes out of the internet is covered under the one data transfer. So I would feel safe to say that yes, you add up all those free data transfers and it goes to your account, but I stand to be corrected if if somebody can find something that says that otherwise. Okay, so I opened up my Windows instance, and here is my standard Windows instance, and amazing as it is, it's actually running in a tab in my web browser, which is really, really neat. And I can resize my window, and up it comes. And now I have one small thing I've just got to do. I have a browser extension that I know interferes with my company just made it compulsory. Excuse me, well, I open up a different ad. A company compulsory browser extension I've discovered interferes with the Lightsail connection. So this won't happen to you. It's particular to my company, but I will have to reconnect in. Let's go over here. I'll reconnect in a different browser to bypass that problem. You log into a normal AWS account even when you are using Lightsail. So back into my Lightsail here, and I click that button again. It will open up a browser tab, reconnected me to that Windows instance. I can resize the window however I wish, and it's a perfectly normal Windows machine. I've even got special buttons where I can hit the Windows button because I'm on a Mac, so if I don't have the Windows button, it'll do it for me. I can come in here and explore files, run Internet Explorer, perfectly normal machine. In fact, in the background here, you'll see it saying it's a T2 Nano, so that information has been revealed to us. It's really running a T2 Nano behind the scenes, but in Lightsail, we just call that the $3.50 a month instance, or whatever it is. So that is an example of using Windows. So you would have noticed that I connected to it just by clicking this little icon. If I go into the Windows server, it says I can connect using my own RDP client, and it will show me the password for that. But it's nice and simple. If you want, just connect in through your web browser. It makes it very easy to manage things. I can also see my disk storage there and attach additional disks. I can see metrics. So over time, this graph will change. And I can see my metrics without having to go to CloudWatch, which is really neat. And a few networking options that we'll talk about later. But here I can see my public IP address because the instance is public, my private IP address within the internal network, and firewall rules are very simple. Again, this is normally done elsewhere in EC2. I can just come in here and say, oh, I would like to add a new firewall rule that allows anyone to access via HTTPS, and that has been applied to my instance. So really, really simple to configure. Hitesh is saying, can we have Varnish cache set up in Lightsail? So Lightsail is really just another virtual machine. You can choose Windows, you can choose Linux. It comes with a number of pre-made disk images for you. I don't think Varnish is one of them, but yes, you could just load what you want inside of there. One thing I should mention, since we were talking about pricing, is that even though the data transfer limits are included with your Lightsail instance, don't try to cheat by sending all your EC2 traffic through Lightsail. Somebody told me there's some rule that says you're not meant to take advantage of the Lightsail data transfer on the rest of your AWS services. So just use that data transfer limit with Lightsail itself. Don't do funny things within there. Let's go and create another instance. I'm going to create a Linux instance, and I shall put it in Zone B, where I've been launching everything else. And here under Linux, I can either choose an operating system only, and I can choose from Amazon Linux, Ubuntu, Debian, SUSE, all of these different ones, and they give you a description of exactly what they are. But in this case, and this is where you could launch a machine and just put Varnish on there. So put whatever you want on it. It's a very straightforward, simple machine. We also have a number of pre-packaged applications, and this list is continually growing. So WordPress, which is a popular blogging site, I heard that 1/3 of websites on the internet run on WordPress, so it's just amazing. The LAMP stack, which includes MySQL, PHP, Linux, etc. Lots of content management systems we have packaged up here for you, or systems that make it easy to run your own applications. I'm going to go for WordPress. And there's an organization called Bitnami. And Bitnami, let's see if I can get some information on them. They are very good at packaging up applications. So there's nothing worse than trying to make your own open source software and trying to install it and all that. And Bitnami do a great job in packaging that up, and so you can just deploy things very quickly and it's all up and working for you. So I will say I want to choose WordPress. Again, I can have a launch script up. Because I'm using Linux, I need a SSH key pair to log in. Normally in EC2, it's a matter of creating them, downloading them, all that. Here, it is offering to create me an automatic key pair, so I don't really need to do anything. I can just stay with the defaults. Again, I can choose my instance type. I'm just going to choose a $3.50 per month, so it gives me the equivalent of a T2 micro. Give it a name, give it some tags, and that's basically it. So I just chose WordPress, and away it goes. We'll give that a minute to boot up. Now, I have a handy getting started guide. When you go into these AMIs, we will point you to some appropriate guides that can help you use the services. So here is a quick start guide for using WordPress on Amazon Lightsail. That's another difference. You'll notice that the documentation for Lightsail, rather than being this huge 300-page manual you've got to flick through and all that, it's written as nice, friendly articles. So this is an article simply on the one topic, and it's not very long. Also, the documentation is in GitHub. You can come in and perform some edits or updates and submit them to us, which is a great way to let us know if there's information missing. You can even author your own documentation and submit that through. So if you've done some interesting things with Lightsail, or you've got a recommendation of how to use a certain package with Lightsail, we encourage you to write the documentation. So very different to the traditional documentation you'll find out there. So here my WordPress instance is up and running. I will attempt to connect into it. Again, I can just click that button, and I've got to wait another minute before it goes up and running. While I'm doing that, let's click in and see what options are here. Again, it gives me my IP address. I can connect using my own SSH client rather than using the built-in one. I can see some disks that are attached there, and I can very easily attach a new disk if I want. Notice it doesn't say how many gigs. I can just choose it off the list, and I know exactly what price I'm going to pay. So I'll call that disk 32, and I could attach, and it's even saying that's what the cost will be. And I'm going to attach that to my WordPress instance. Snapshots. Snapshots are traditionally very difficult to manage. And the great thing about Lightsail is you can, if I go back to my instance, you can say, I would like a snapshot and I would like an automatic snapshot. And just by ticking this box and saying, yes, please give me an automatic snapshot, it will take care of it. So it will automatically take a snapshot of your instance every day. It'll store the 7 most recent snapshots. Older snapshots will be removed. So as simple as clicking a button, I now know that my machine snapshot is being created every day. What that means is it's a copy of the disks attached to that instance. So if anything goes wrong, maybe I accidentally deleted some data, I can restore those disks from the snapshot. So really, really good. Everything I do with my instance is also tracked in this history tab. So I can see when I created the instance, when I attached a disk, when I enabled an add-on. So I think that was turning on my snapshot, automatic snapshot. Very, very easy to see what's going on here. Okay, that's probably ready for me to connect in. So again, I just click the little SSH icon, and here I am in my instance. And it is a perfectly normal Windows instance. I'm accessing it through a web browser, which makes it very easy for me to connect my services. I don't have to have all these different programs and things open. For those of you who just joined me, my name is John. I'm a developer advocate at AWS, and we are looking at Lightsail and deploying WordPress on Lightsail. So feel free to say hi in chat. So what can we do here? So this Linux instance had WordPress installed. So if I go to the instance and grab this IP address, you can probably go to this IP address too if you're watching this live. I go to the IP address, and here is my WordPress site already up and going. And I can have a look at the blog posts that are on there. It's fantastic. Very, very simple way to install WordPress. What if I want to administer it? So it's telling me that I've got to go to my login site. And I know that all I need to do is attach WP admin to the URL. My login name is user. How do I get the password? So if I hop into my Bitnami thing here, I can easily get the password by, it's a randomly generated password for security purposes so that other people don't know the admin password that you start with. It's stored on the machine, so I just SSH'd into it, grabbed that password and put it in the console. And here I am administering my WordPress instance on Lightsail. So great way to get up and going with WordPress. The other nice thing about WordPress is it can automatically update itself, so you don't have to do funny things on the command line. I can just come in here and say, yes, please update my WordPress site. It will go off and do that automatically. Also, what I can do in here, if I'm looking at my WordPress instance, I can come to networking. And you'll see I've got an IP address. Now, this public IP address, if I stop and start WordPress, it is likely to get a different public IP address. So I can come in and create a static IP address, and it's as simple as coming in and saying, please create it for my WordPress instance. I will call it WordPress static. Click the button, and there I have it. So I now have a static IP address associated with my WordPress instance. I can detach that and attach it to other instances there as well. Also in here, if I go to networking, I can control my firewalls, add a load balancer if I wish in front of it, and add that caching layer, the content distribution network. DC Reed is asking, are you going to cover adding an SSL certificate? You've been using Let's Encrypt, is there a better way? I will point you to some documentation on that. I won't do it during this one because I haven't got domain names and all that set up, but yes, we'll cover talking about using SSL with Lightsail. It's again made things an awful lot easier for you, and the cost of using the CDN includes the encryption, I believe. Let's do something with our database. So I created a database before. How can I prove to you that my database is up and running? Maybe we should connect into it. So here it's telling me my username, my password, and the endpoint that I can connect in. So what I might do is grab my it's cut off. I shall reopen that connection. Fantastic. Let's install some software to get Postgres on here so I can connect to my Postgres database. I just did a copy and paste of command into that web window, so pasting through the web window is quite okay. So I've just installed the Postgres client. And now let's try and connect into my database. Go over here to databases. It's telling me this is the endpoint, which is effectively the host that I want to connect to. My username is master, and I think that's all I have to do. I can grab the password, the complex password that has been set up for me, and I think I called it dbmaster. No, my username was master. Username. I didn't give it a database name, and my database name is DB master. Let's see if that one works better. Woohoo! So I had to tell it the host computer, the username that I'm logging in as, and the name of the database within the database server. So now I'm in here, so I can do something like create table foo, ID int name text. This is Postgres. Insert into table into foo 1 John. Always forget my semicolon. So here I have a perfectly working Postgres database that I can access from my WordPress instance. I could reconfigure WordPress and say, please use this database rather than using the database on the instance itself. So very easy to launch the database and start using it. Let's talk about some of the other advanced features. I should mention that when you create disks, go to this machine and talk about storage. When I go in there and want to add another one, I believe it is encrypted by default. I can't see an encryption option here. So yes, I believe it is encrypted by default, which is quite handy. If you have a snapshot, so we made a snapshot of my, oh no, we don't have a snapshot. Let's create a snapshot of my WordPress instance. And I'll show you some features we have of that in a moment. Oh, you can also activate VPC peering, which is very handy. You can connect your Lightsail virtual network to your normal EC2 network. So if I go into networking here, I've got to find it. It's a little bit hidden. I think I come into here, go into my account. So in my account settings for Lightsail, it's very simple options. I can update my contact information. I can manage my SSH keys that it created automatically for me, though I can download them and do them. And this is where I can activate VPC peering. So simply a matter of ticking enable VPC peering, and from my normal EC2 VPC, I can peer to this one, so I can share access maybe to a database or transferring information across. It simply allows my Lightsail to be peered to, and I can manage my access keys. So again, you can control everything in Lightsail via API calls or using the AWS CLI, so you can manage your SSH keys in there. Very straightforward. I also have access to the traditional billing console, which takes you back to the normal AWS billing console, so you can see what things are costing you. So if I go back to WordPress here, look at my snapshot, it is still being created, so I can't show you what I was going to do there. Oh, this is neat. I showed you before how you can turn on automatic snapshots. You can also nominate when you want that automatic snapshot to happen, and you can define it either in UTC or your own local time zone. So it's recognized I'm in Australia, so it's allowing me to choose my snapshot time based on my local time zone, which is really neat. Here I have my snapshot, and you'll see it snapshotted both the disks that are attached to my instance. Now, is this a snapshot or is this an AMI? Those of you familiar with EC2, a snapshot is a backup of a single disk, which you can restore to a new Amazon EBS Elastic Block Store volume. Whereas an AMI, an Amazon Machine Image, is a set of disks that you can use to launch a new EC2 instance, and it automatically attaches those disks for you. So the fact that it's snapshotted 2 disks for me has probably shown you that this is effectively an AMI, but it's also a snapshot. It's quite weird. I can launch a new instance from this snapshot, so effectively making an exact copy of my instance using that. I can copy the snapshot to a different region, so if I want to launch my service in a different region, it copies the disks across. Or I can export to EC2. And this allows me to take that disk image and run exactly the same thing on my EC2 instances. So if I start with Lightsail and eventually I sort of graduate to a bigger need, I can move all of my machines, or at least the disks, across to EC2 and launch them again over there, which is very, very nice. Load balancing. Let's have a look at load balancing. Load balancing is the one that includes the free certificate. So you can put a load balancer in front of your multiple instances to automatically direct traffic to them. And then you can configure an SSL certificate that runs on the load balancer, and all the costs are included in that $18 a month for the load balancer. I also have some information about using the content distribution network. And so there's a really good blog article here. In fact, I will put this in the chat so you can refer to it. All the other documentation I've shown you so far is built into the Lightsail console. And this blog post shows you how you can add a caching layer, a content distribution network in front of your Lightsail instance. And the main bits are simply you go into Lightsail and you create the distribution. It takes a bit of time to create. You can assign a static IP address to your instance, which is a good idea if you're putting a CDN in front of an EC2 instance. You don't want the EC2 instance changing your IP address, so you can assign a static IP address to the instance first. You can define caching behavior, and it understands certain pre-made settings. So if you're running WordPress, you can change the settings there. It even shows you, if you're running WordPress, here is how to change the host settings so it knows that you're going through a content distribution network. And then you can attach a custom domain name. If you have a DNS name, which you can manage through the console as well, you can point that domain name to the content distribution and create a certificate. Here's for you, DC Reedy. David, you can create a certificate in there and it will automatically attach it to the CDN. So both load balancer and the CDN allow you to use certificates. Haven't done it myself because I'm normally a Route 53 person, but it allows you to do it in there as well. So they are the key elements. Talking about Lightsail, please, if you have any questions, ask me in chat. I'm happy to spend some time talking about it. Another thing I want to show you is if you want to play with Lightsail yourself, I recommend this Lightsail Workshop. This was created by our solutions architects. It was last used in, I think I saw a date here, for our reInvent, I think a year ago, so this should be quite up to date. You can use it. And what it does is it takes you through and deploys a LAMP stack, multiple Amazon EC2 instances with a load balancer in front, and then you re-architect, you add the database, connect into the database, and it's an application that can do it all for you as well. So step by step, it's really good taking you through. If you don't particularly want to do that workshop yourself, there is a great video from our most recent AWS reInvent conference, normally held in Las Vegas. This year it will be online. And this particular session, which I'll put in the chat as well, shows how to use Lightsail, even better than I do. And it goes through the steps that are normally in this workshop. So if you follow through, you'll see the person deploy multiple EC2 instances behind a load balancer, connecting up to a database very nicely, or you can do the workshop yourself. So I'm now open for any questions that you might have about Lightsail. The things I just love about Lightsail, that one-click access to get into your instances, one click to RDP into there, automatic snapshotting. It's really quite phenomenal what it's doing. If I call up that summary slide again, see, we've covered everything. So we've seen you can do compute, storage, and networking very easily. It has that combined bundle of pricing. Hey, Mastermind, thanks for coming in here. We've just finished our demo of Lightsail, and now you come and raid us. So you'll have to go back and watch this episode again. Very simple console, and everything you've got here you can do via the AWS CLI. We've just been rated by a group of people from Mastermind, Mastermind.io, who gives excellent online lessons about how to use AWS. I highly recommend you go and visit him. So I'm taking questions while I'm waiting for questions. I'm happy to show you folks some things about Lightsail. So ask away in the chat if you wish. So what I did earlier on, I launched a Windows instance. For those of you who have not seen, it's very simple launching an instance in Lightsail. You can just come in, choose your region, choose your availability zone. You can choose to have Windows or Linux. I chose a Windows 2019 server, or you can come in and choose any variety of Linux, but there are also packaged up Linux applications and effectively AMIs. And just by choosing them, you can quickly deploy a fully packaged instance. In my case, I deployed one running WordPress. When you deploy instances, there's not much you have to do. You can provide a launch script, otherwise known as user data. You can select for Linux, you can choose a key pair, or one is created for you. And the pricing is the real key thing to Lightsail. The idea that for one fixed monthly price, charged per hour, but we quote it per month, we tell you exactly what you're paying. You get the CPU, you get the RAM, you get disk storage included, and data transfer. So that's probably the biggest thing about Lightsail. One fixed price gets your machine a certain amount of disk storage and a certain amount of data transfer. So you can just choose the size of plan you want, and you get all of that bundled within it. I have launched a couple of them. So let's have a look. Here is my Windows instance. I can just do, this is really neat, I can just do one click, and it will RDP me into this Windows instance using my web browser. You can still connect in if you want using your standard remote desktop protocol client, RDP client, but it's all here. So you're running a normal Windows instance, one click to access it, and very easy to manage. You could then install whatever you want. It's a perfectly normal Windows 2019 instance. If I go to my WordPress instance over here, I've got the same thing. I can one button click SSH into the instance. And I am, oops, in my wrong browser here. Here I am, I'm connected in, and I have in this case installed WordPress on this particular instance. And I can prove that by going here and just grabbing my static IP address. It launched with a temporary public IP address, but I automatically assigned a static IP address. You can go to it yourselves even. If I go to the machine, I have my WordPress instance up and going, and I can also log in as the administrator and start customizing that whole website. So nice and simple way to use services. And finally, I also launched a database behind the scenes powered by RDS, but a much simpler console. Again, choose your region, choose your availability zone, choose the database that you want to run, configure some login credentials and password, or it can do it for you automatically. Once more, a fixed price. For a given price, you get a certain power of RDS database. You get a certain amount of disk storage in there and a certain database. Now there's one thing I didn't mention before. There's a very interesting feature with the database in that you can put it into a data import mode. And let's see, database import. Let's see if the documentation has it. And I might have to do a Google search. Lightsail database import. Importing your data into configuring the import modifier. Where is my page? Importing data. So there is a very interesting mode, and I'll see if I can show it to you here. Oh, it's not saying. Data import, here it is, yay! I'll put it in the chat in case you ever want to find it. So this thing is called a data import mode for your Lightsail database. and it's designed to make it faster to load into the database. And what it does is it suspends other operations on the database. So people can't use the database to query, so only do it in off hours or when you're setting up the system. And it puts it into a different mode that allows you to quickly load the database a lot faster. So you turn on this data import mode. Let's see if I can find it in my existing database. Database, history, metrics. Here it is, data import mode. Your database will be unavailable for a moment. Automatic backups don't happen. And your import might be slowed if you transfer more than a certain amount of data. And I'll get back to that in a moment. And that allows you to import things really quickly. So the other thing we were looking at was the pricing for Lightsail. So now let's see if a lot more of this makes sense. It's not on this page. There is a pricing page which mentions that depending upon the amount of information you are loading in the database, you might get throttled after a certain volume, and that's based on the size of the database you're running. So sorry, I'm a bit vague there, but this database import thing was a bit strange. And for those people from Mastermind who just joined the channel, a quick summary again of the pricing. You've got both Windows and Linux available within the service. We launched off this $3.50 one, and the machine that we connected to, if we look at our Windows instance, not that one, I want my Windows instance, it gave away the secret. I will connect into Windows, and it told me that it is running on a T2 micro. So you can pretty much map behind the scenes what EC2 instance type is running on each of these instances. And if we look at the background picture here, it was running there before, it's not showing at the moment. It said that it was a T2 micro that came up on the screen. So now my knowledge is that a T2 micro normally costs about $8.50 a month. So here you're not only getting a really great saving, you're also getting some disk storage that would normally be $2 a month, and you're getting a terabyte of data transfer, or slightly less in Mumbai and Sydney. So that one package is really, really great. So if somebody is looking for where can I host my WordPress site, my content management system, or I just need a machine to play with somewhere in the internet and I don't want to have unknown pricing coming into effect, then Lightsail is a very, very good option for that. If you're more in the I am deploying applications that I would normally need machines in a data center for, that's when you would use EC2, VPC, RDS and all that. But a great starting place is Lightsail because the console is just so easy to get going. Let me know if you have any questions out there about Lightsail. Otherwise, that is not only all I wanted to cover this week, it's really all you need to know about Lightsail, aside from creating your own load balancer and content distribution network, which I just showed you some articles but didn't create myself. You can go in and manage domain names if you have your own domain name associated. You can go in and deploy a load balancer, both HTTP and a certificate to do HTTPS. And you can come in and create your CloudFront distribution that sits in front of your particular instance. It's a simple matter of pulling down and saying, which one do I want to front? Much easier than configuring a traditional CloudFront distribution. I thought I had a static IP address on that machine. I will create a static IP address on that machine. Oh, I did static for Windows, didn't I? So I can say, oops, I want my WordPress instance. I'm going to use the static IP. This is interesting. Caching behavior. Best for static content, best for dynamic content, or we've got a pre-configured one specifically for WordPress. So all the experts have done what's necessary to configure for WordPress, which is possibly cache nothing. Here it is. It's telling exactly what to cache. Cache the WP content, WP includes. The includes are all the style sheet type things, and the content are all the pictures. Otherwise, everything else is dynamic, and it's got all these complex options configured for you. You choose how much you want. 50 gigs plan, 50 gigs per month plan is free for the first 12 months. If you exceed it, then we have the FAQ. The Lightsail FAQ is a great place for asking pricing questions. And in here, it explains everything about, for example, what happens if you exceed data transfer, and what happens if you go over your storage costs, etc. I see no questions out there, so I'll take it that all of you are just blown away with the simplicity of Lightsail. And give it a try yourself. What you might have seen out there is some free services, so you can create an instance, and this might actually tie into. Oh no, this is specifically Lightsail. You can launch the $3.50 instance for free for the first month, so give it a play. There's no reason not to do it. Let's have a look at the AWS free usage tier and see what it says about Lightsail. It says you get a 1-month free trial of a $3.50 Linux instance, and it also says try the $8 Windows plan for 1 month. Okay, so you can do both Linux and Windows for a month on Lightsail, so have a play with it. So that ties it up. Thank you for watching Developers Let's Code. This is aimed at new to AWS developers learning what our services have to offer. Thanks, Elite. What do we have up next week? Same time next week, we are looking at Amplify. How can you create a static website using Amplify? And the week after, sorry, the date's wrong here. The week after, we are looking at how you can create dynamic websites using AWS Amplify. So if you're not too familiar with Amplify, a great introduction to those services. So thanks very much. And I should put a link in if you want to be notified about future episodes of this show. I will send you to this particular page. And if you just click the subscribe button, you'll receive a notification of each of our episodes that come out. So thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you again. Actually, Gabe, another developer advocate, will be doing the next couple of Amplify shows. So thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you again. Cheerio.